What's the lamest way that you injured yourself badly? I broke my arm just riding my bike on flat ground. I saw a shiny rock and turned my head to look at it and fell over. I was riding full speed down a hill once and a bee hit my forehead. Knocked me ass over teacups. Wrecked the bike. Lincolnison. I'm upvoting you just because you used the phrase ass over teacups. I don't think I've ever heard anyone but my husband use that phrase until now. I broke my nose while opening the fridge. I was sleepy and stood too close. That's when I stopped the habit of night snacking. Gave myself a serious concussion when I didn't clear the top freezer and hit the very top of my head taking something out of the fridge. I cold and dry for 2mo and had auditory hallucinations for about 2 years. It was such a ridiculous accident. I thought the glowing sand under the disposable BBQ would be cool to touch. It was not cool in the slightest. My stepfather dumped the ash from the grill in the trash. Ended up setting the plastic garbage can on fire. I laughed way harder than I should have. Threw my back out taking a shit. Might be time to consider adding a little fiber to the diet. I should have stated it was more from moving/tweaking a certain when I reached for the toilet paper. But boy did it hurt lol. Dropped a chair on my face. Still got the scar 20 years later. Was trying to drive a nail vertically into a pencil. Ended up driving it into my hand instead. I stepped off a curb coming out of a movie theater and rolled my ankle. I ended up fracturing a bone in my foot that required surgery. I was on crutches for about 6 months. I was walking down a set of stairs at the airport and missed the bottom step. Hurt like $%. But I was on my way to Italy for 2 weeks, so bought a pair of compression stockings and squeezed my very swollen foot into both of them for the flight. Walked/hobbled stubbornly around in the beautiful cities of Italy, Florence, Venice, Verona, Pisa, for 2 weeks. No crutches. Just a support bandage in my sandals. On what turned out was a fractured heel bone. Missed a curb and stepped funny, and I ignored the pain thinking I just pulled a muscle. Finally went to the doctor 2 months later and apparently I fractured my spine and tore my hip labrum. I fainted and shattered my foot by just getting out of bed. Seriously. Got up and went to the bathroom. Felt that wah 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 feeling. Grabbed a bottle of water then crumpled, unconscious, in front of my fridge in my own apartment. I'd just moved in. Didn't even have furniture and had been sleeping on a bedroll till I could pick up my stuff. I broke 3 metatarsals clean through. 2 chip fractures. Resulted in 2 plates and 12 screws. Didn't walk for almost 6 months. Edit. Word. Yeah, you'll need some calcium in your diet. I was 35 and wrecked my car on the highway doing 80 miles per hour. Caught something in the road that locked my left wheel, dragging me full speed into a gap in the center concrete barrier. Ripped most of the front end of my car off. Airbags never went off. I had a single fracture on the capitate bone in my right hand from the futile attempt to steer away from the median during impact. Holy shit. Calcium, I know calcium. I don't think you realize how lucky you are to have gotten out of that with just 1 fracture, never mind your life. Not me, but one of my teachers in high school tripped on his sword and stabbed his leg. Had to go to the ER. One semi-loud sneeze. Popped a vessel in my nose. Had to go to the hospital because it bled like a faucet. This is why it's so important to always sneeze full volume. Try and bottle any of it up and it'll find another way out. True. Now I'm all in on dad sneezes. Stepping from one level surface to another while gardening. Rolled my ankle so hard that horrible sensation of wrongness alone almost made me throw up. Had to crawl into the house. Whole foot and calf turned purple and I was on crutches/no driving for months. Eater. I have so many limping brethren who share my deep disappointment in the fundamental design flaws of ankles. Love to you all. Big feels to everyone who has, unhappily, joined this club. Holy Christ, go big or go home, I guess. Lol. I did at least get to show off my freakishly high tolerance for pain. My husband couldn't even look at it. There was ultimately no break. but the swelling definitely made it look like it had an unnatural angle in it. I refused to take off a band-aid when I was around 6 years old. It got infected and they almost had to amputate my leg. I tried to pee off the side of a hot tub because I was jealous that my brother and his friends could do it. I'm female. I slipped and cracked open my chin on concrete. Were you 5 or 25 when this happened? Because one is funnier than the other. I've dislocated my shoulder multiple times high-fiving and twice getting out of bed. Is it true that once you dislocate it, it's easier to dislocate again? Seems like everybody dislocated it more than once. Very much so. Everything keeps getting stretched out each time. And there can even be bone loss / damage from friction / grinding. Like in my case, I've thrown it out 15 times and had 3 surgeries. By climbing a tree and just standing there and somehow slip and break my legs. Edit. It had been raining and I was 7. I'm sorry, but the mental image of some guy standing in a tree, completely still, suddenly slipping on nothing and breaking his legs is just hilarious to me. I have a giant scar on my ankle from shaving my legs drunk. I may or may not have tried to shave my pubis drunk and may or may not have injured my crotch. I can neither confirm or deny I wasn't drunk. Coming from a lactose intolerant person, eating copious amounts of dairy to the point where I shit my organs out, then pass out on the bathroom floor, then subsequently wake up with a small piece of my forehead missing. When I was little, I lived with my mom in a ranch house, and the whole house had this long and narrow hallway that ran through it. I thought it would be funny to run straight at my mom and park her off the wall to pass her in the hallway at a high speed. In reality, my foot slipped off the wall. I tripped over her foot and went straight down into my left hand as I caught my fall awkwardly. Broke my wrist in 2 places and broke 3 fingers. Lol. Parker is where you go from pointer to point B as creative as possible, while pointer is delusion and point B is the hospital. Edit. Thanks for the award, kind stranger. Got knocked over by a 5-year-old, hitting my head on a table and breaking my wrist in the process. I wish I was joking. Edit. Wow. I'm reading some of your stories and feeling less alone. Thanks for sharing. My mum tripped over a kid at work and fractured 3 ribs. She was like 55 at the time, so it flattened her for weeks. Not me, but a friend got drunk and punched a brick wall full force to prove how tough he was. The resulting damage to his hand left him permanently unable to fully close it. At the time he was very drunk and preaching about how harmful weed is because it destroys your body. My dad told me a similar story. They'd been drinking. Their sober ride is trying to drive them home. He sticks his hand out the window to punch a mailbox. Couldn't do sports anymore after all the extensive surgeries they had to do on his hand. It's wild how quickly your life can change. I know, right? You never expect it coming from the mundane things you do every day, like punching mailboxes barehanded from a moving vehicle. Even USPS California stops most of the time, and they're professionals. In the dark, I ran into a clothesline, fell backwards onto the ground, and had a concussion. Sounds like you got clotheslined. I have too. I broke my hand attempting to punch my brother through a weak fist. He blocked with his arm, and I broke the bone on the side of my right hand. I broke my clavicle after riding my bike into my dog in our driveway and flipping over the handlebars. I got a paper cut on my foot by walking past an open book. I'm gonna have to ask for details on this one. So there was an open book on the floor, and I was walking past it barefoot. The side of my foot grazed the corner of the book enough for a page up and slice it. Fell on a plastic bucket. It shattered and went through my cheek. On the bright side, I got a cool Joker scar from it. So that's why the Joker always makes up stories about how he got those scars. Hard to maintain a tough supervillain mystique when a plastic bucket nearly kills you. The amount of times I kicked myself in the balls while trying to remove my socks is way too high. That's happened to me never many times. You're doing it wrong. One time I had a thought process that didn't end logically. I was horny, and I thought, vaginas are good because they are warm. Fire is warm. A big fire is too warm. A little fire is little warm. I have a small lighter. I will put that to my penis. I burned my penis. Guys, we need to save this comment for the next time we are trying to explain to someone how we got from point A to point catastrophe. It's just how it works sometimes. Was dropping a ceiling in an apartment complex for HVAC ductwork. I had safety glasses on that had a mild tint. I couldn't see well with them on for one nail I had to drive. It was new construction so there was no lights in the building. Took the glasses off, and the second swing of the hammer sent the nail straight into my right eye. What a stupid way to lose an eye. Sliced my hand open trying to trim my toenails with tiny scissors on vacation. I tore a muscle in my shoulder blade masturbating edit. Why is this my most top rated comment? That's what masturbating furiously means. Oh. So I wasn't supposed to literally bust my nuts. I was 8 years old when I slipped in the bathroom and broke my front tooth on Christmas Day. It was already crooked to start with, but it snapped of about half of my tooth. So we had to find a dentist who was willing to check that I hadn't damaged the nerves of it. The good thing was it did it, so that we met Dr. Anderson, real name, in California, who is an awesome guy. 10/10ths would recommend, because has very chill with kids. Don't know if he has retired yet or not though. Burnt the tip of my dick with a dab nail. Many years ago, married 24 years now, my husband and I were goofing around play fighting. Has a 2nd degree black belt. In the 2nd degree dumbus. I lunge forward while flinging my foot and kick him in the bum. Broke my ankle. He was unscathed. We still laugh about it today. Tried to impress a girl I had a crush on in 4th grade. Told her I can jump over her. Jumped. Hit my head on a door frame. Had a concussion the next day. I was headed to the laundry room in my apartment building and decided to walk down the icy steps in flip-flops. I slipped, landed all 350 pounds of my then self on the edge of a step just above my left butt cheek. This resulted in a fractured pelvis and nerve damage, both of which still bother me from time to time 16 years later. In with you, except no ice. Fell down a set of concrete stairs at work and broke my pelvis. Wasn't doing anything except walking down the steps in a well-lit space. Supreme humiliation being taken out of the office by paramedics. 4 months of bed rest and also have regular pain years later. I stepped down off a truck bed and rolled my ankle. Broke 3 bones. Tore ligaments, tendons, and 1 muscle. Out of work for 6 weeks. Fell down 1 flight of stairs like going down a slide. Fractured my tailbone. Thought it was just a really bad bruise and walked it off for 1 month before I thought of getting an x-ray. Even did foot drill before I found out. Also chased after the ex-president when he was jogging at a beach. Fell and scrapped my knees. Got his attention. Got up and said hi. Threw my back out sneezing. Told my boss / coworkers I was helping my mom move something heavy because it was so embarrassingly lame. Taking out the trash. Slipped on some ice and blew my knee out. This just happened like 5 days ago. I was taking a dump peacefully in my restroom and my daughter has a small wooden stool she uses to reach the counters and get on the toilet. I thought to myself, well, I'm sitting here watching YouTube. May as well get comfortable. I stretched my legs onto the stool. And all of a sudden I feel a very sharp pain. Imagine getting probed in your hip joint by a white hot iron poker that also electrocutes in my hip joint. No major movement was done, other than just lifting my legs, straightening them out onto the stool. Had to finish taking a shit in severe, blinding pain. -10/10ths would not recommend now. Every time I walk or try and straighten up, my hip feels like a jellyfish is ducking my hip with its stinger. Been going okay for 5 days, but can't afford to see a churro. Imboned. Being a 30 years old dude in this happening. Sucks ass. You should really get this checked out. The sooner the better. If you've torn/pulled anything, the longer you let it go, the more damage it could do and end up costing you so much more. I injured my eye quite badly putting safety glasses on too quickly by jamming the arm into my eye. I was on holiday in France when I was about 10 and we were in a patisserie and the oven was right next to where you paid for your things. I said to my mum, "Do you reckon that's hot?" She said, "Touch it and find out." So I stuck my hand flat on the surface and it stuck to the oven. It was so hot. I then ripped it away and left a layer of skin on the side of the oven that started to crisp up and burn and it stunk. So yeah, the next 10 days of the trip was fun having to have a burn glove on. A. I should have known a ducking oven that is glowing would be hot. B. Found out my mum thinks I'm not as smart as she thought. This is pretty much the opposite of helicopter parenting. Red hot glowing patisserie oven parenting. I cut off a pimple on my face with a dirty knife. I ended up getting infected and the entire right side of my face bloated up with pus. Gradually, I could barely see through my right eye. It was years ago, but they cut something in my nose and drained the pus out my face. Holy shit. That's, insert that lady yelling at her daughters for not flushing the shit. Disgusting. I punched my headboard. Direct hit. Beautiful technique. Alignment of the wrist was pristine and contact was made on the first two knuckles. Still broke. Shaving my legs without paying attention. I ended up shaving off the skin on the back of my ankle. Open bracket. I grabbed my ankle because I physically felt this. Flashbacks. Was once cutting pants into shorts while I was wearing them with a 7-inch knife. It got caught on the seam. I pulled and stabbed myself in the thigh. I'm embarrassed to even type it. I bumped my head into another child while on a trampoline. She was fine, but I had to get stitches. I was like 10 or 11 maybe. A kid in my kids' gymnastics class was practicing on their trampoline and broke her neck, which turned out to be a good thing. She was born missing a vertebra in her neck, and as a kid, they could just do a simple fusion and done. They would have never known if she hadn't injured it, but if she were a teen and her bones mostly completely formed, it would have severed her spinal cord. She was fine 6 months post-surgery. Slipped of a curb. Fractured my foot in 2 places. Not a fun few weeks. I didn't end up being badly injured, but at the time I thought I was going to die. At my grandparents', my brother and I made a makeshift swing out of a tow rope and a random board when we were pretty young. We couldn't control the height of the swing very well because the limb we wrapped the rope around was thick. So the swing was high enough that we had to do a jump and pull combo to get into. At one point the rope broke while I was in the seat and I fell flat on my back. I had never had the wind knocked out of me before, and when that happens you physically cannot breathe for a bit. I thought I broke a rib or something, and it pierced my lung, so I couldn't inhale. Not how that actually works. But I was young. I thought was going to suffocate on the ground, while my brother was standing over me telling me to not be a baby. Hit a yoga ball with a metal baseball bat, and it bounced back up, and hit my head which broke my nose. Playing TIG, or tag if you're American, and ran into a metal pole. Split my head open. Blood everywhere and required multiple stitches. Now I have a scar on my forehead. Kinda looks like an exclamation mark cause it leads to a mole at the bottom. I sprained my jaw. Yes, that's apparently possible. By going down on a girl. Hurt to eat anything for a month. I hope she rewarded you for your exceptional efforts. Got my foot stuck in a couch, completely dislocated it. When I was like 5 years old, I was rolling around on the floor all wrapped up in a blanket because I was a caterpillar in my cocoon. I hit my head on the corner of our brick fireplace. It didn't hurt, but I touched my head and there was a lot of blood. We went to the ER or something, and we had the option to do stitches. But I was 5 and chickened out. So we just put a gauze over it, and I couldn't swim for a month. I still have a scar. It's in my hairline, and it doesn't grow hair. I'm a very clumsy caterpillar. The microwave cooking my pizza rolls upstairs dinged ready while I was downstairs playing Apex. I hadn't eaten all day, so out of excitement, I sprinted around the corner and knocked my right foot on the wall and tore off my big toenail. I had to put 8 stitches in. Big toe has nerve damage, and my toenail grew back all ducked up. I was 28 at the time. Sorry, big toe. Taking pizza rolls out of the oven, I touched the heating element and gave myself a 2nd-degree burn on my thumb. I was sitting down for a long time in a funny position. Barefoot. The lower part of my left leg was dead asleep, and I decided to wake it up. I should stand up and shake it. I stood up. The foot rolled, which I didn't even feel, and I heard a snap. I had broken my foot, and it was so dead asleep I didn't feel any pain for another 15 minutes. I'm sure other zebras will commiserate. I have Ehlers-Danlos, so I've dislocated ribs from sneezing and shoulders from sleeping. I think that's pretty lame, because it's not even good sneezes or refreshing sleeps that cause the injuries. Fellow zebra reporting in. I dislocated my ankle by sitting in the passenger seat of a parked car. I had my feet up on the dashboard and the joint just slipped. The morning inventory of injury is always fun. Lol. When I was like 6, I was holding open one of those dresses where it's basically just a box with an open navel top on it. Well, the top was very heavy. As I was choosing my shirt for the day, my hand slipped and it like destroyed my left middle and ring fingers nails. There's also the story of how I got my leg ran over by a car because I decided not to listen to my mom when I was like 4 years old. But that's a story for another time. Stabbed myself in the hand with a steak knife trying to pry a frozen pepper off a pizza. I could have just taken it off after microwaving it. Yeah, but if you take it off after it's been heated up, you can still taste the pepper. You did the right thing. Tried reenacting a Tom and Jerry scene where Tom screams out the window. I tripped and hit my face on the aluminum window frame. Still have a big scar on my nose to this day. I used to lift pretty heavy, but I got lazy and stopped working out for a while. My first week back in the gym I felt great, and on leg day I decided to hit the squat rack. My 5RM4 back squat used to be 315 pounds, but I knew I wouldn't hit that. So after my warm-up sets I racked 185, easy, 205, easy, and then 225, easy. My legs felt great. So I racked 245 and assumed I'd be able to hit 5 reps at least. On the 2nd rep while raising, I ducking folded myself in half. Was so painful I almost fainted. Could barely get to the dressing room to get my shit. Stumbled to the front desk. Asked for help. Got wheeled into an ambulance in a stretcher. In retrospect I didn't need an ambulance, but it was my first serious back injury and it hurt so badly I thought I had broken something. I was bedridden with a slip disc for about 2 to 3 weeks and did physio for months before I was able to start lifting again. Duck, I felt stupid. I walk on my feet all day every day. Now I have a really bad case of plantar fasciitis, and before I started getting treatment I could barely walk. New arch supports, new boots, and 6 months later and now I only have problems when I first get up. It could take over a year to fully heal. Working retail did that to me too. Sadly, I still have the pain, even with new shoes and insoles every 6 months. Good news is my boss fully understands that he can't have employees in pain, so he lets me sit down when the pain gets too bad. I left some stuff on a football field after marching band practice and was too lazy to call someone to unlock the gate, so I climbed and jumped the 10-foot or so fence. Hurt my knee pretty badly on the landing, but didn't think much of it until I jumped back over and heard some pops in my knee and couldn't move. Turns out I obliterated my ACL, so I told everyone I tore it on the football field. I got out of the sauna with my kids at my house, and I was like, hey look, I'll do a forward roll in the snow like I used to do when I trained martial arts. Except it was winter, and the ground was frozen solid under a couple inches of snow, and I weighed like 230 pounds now, not 180 lbs. The clavicle detached from the rest of my shoulder, and I had to get an operation with 3 pins to hold it back. I was about 8 years old and was at my buddy's house. My mom told me that morning not to do anything dumb, since we didn't have insurance at the time. I ended up climbing a tree and falling out like a Acme cartoon. Broke my wrist and got a good whooping for that one. In 3rd grade so I stood behind some guy while playing hockey. As he took a swing with the hockey bat, I got hit in the face and one of my front teeth broke in half and the nerve was damaged. That is also the reason why I have now, 5 years later, braces. Got drunk as duck and tripped over a literal crack in the pavement, landing awkwardly and busting my clavicle into multiple pieces. My friends carried me home, which of course lifted the smashed clavicle to a degree solidly over 90 and chalked up my beastish growls to being too drunk. Woke up the next day on a flimsy mattress behind the couch in my parents' living room. To this day I do not know why they dragged out an old mattress instead of just dropping me on the couch. I expected about 50% of these stories would have drinking in it. I was surprised the percentage was so low. Literally any time I stub my toe I'm unable to function because of a tiny incident. I burned my eyeball with boiling water making tea. I turned around. Straight up, just calmly turned around. Not even fast. But I was on tile in my pool house and it was damp. Not even wet from people swimming. Just humidity on tile, damp. Left leg twisted and went even more left. Right leg folded under me. At first I didn't think it was that bad. It was horrible. Couldn't walk at all for 2 days. Barely for a week. Finally was pain free a month later. I know it's not life threatening, but duck. I turned around. Every now and then it gets a little bit slippy when you turn around. Turn around. Every now and then my leg's a little bit tired of my shit. I jokingly made a gay weak wrist move, and it seriously messed up my wrist and still hurts when I bend my hand too far back 10 years later. Working in a kitchen for several years without a knife injury, the thing that finally got me bad, the lid to a tin can, sliced my thumb deep. It was winter, and I decided to have a hot bath. Figured I could stay warm a little longer by getting on my knees and leaning out the tub to grab the towel for a quick transition from hot water to warm towel, eliminating as much standing but naked and wet in the cold air. That genius plan didn't go so well when my knee slipped sideways in the soapy water, hit the corner of the tub under my outstretched arm, and broke 3 ribs. Really wish I'd taken a few extra minutes of discomfort over the weeks of pain. I was an angsty teen and just had a bad breakup. I was obsessed with running at this point. But for this night, I made a specific playlist on my iPod to get my angry running out. It was January and the snow had recently fallen. At one point there was an emo song playing, and when it hit the good part of the song there was a nice chunk in front of me, so I put full force into kicking it. Turns out it was just a rock and I fractured my foot. For no reason at all. In high school I was walking down the hallway with my shoulder brushing against the lockers, walking towards a friend who was opening their locker. They didn't see me, and as I approached them, they opened the locker door and it hit me in the face and broke my nose. I shut my head in the car door. I was going to be smooth and get into my car at the same time I was shutting the door, all in one swift motion. But I wasn't swift, and my head didn't make it into the car in time. I was about 10 to 11 and trying to lure my goats to go back in their pen with a little scoop of grain. The alpha doe knocked the grain out of my hand. I got so mad that I stomped my foot. I'm in my mid-20s, and that knee still hurts. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.